Okay, so in this video, we'll be doing the Easter eggs and predictions for Season 1, Episode 7 of Marvel's Wandavision, so beware spoiler, not caught up. So the episode title was called Breaking the Fourth Wall, which is referring to the fact that this episode was inspired by the Modern Family show, which came out in September 23rd, 2009, and The Office that came out in 2000 or yeah, March of March 24th, 2005, which was the States version, but there was a UK version that came out on July 9th, 2001. And those shows actually would break the fourth wall and actually talk to the camera like how Wanda and everyone else in this episode was doing that. But the other like other reference to a TV show was Happy Endings, which I'm not sure if they broke the fourth wall in that show because I never actually heard of it until this week. And that came out on April 13th, 2011. And it was actually produced, and some episodes were written by the Russo brothers that are famous for like the Winter Soldier movie, Civil War, and so on and so forth in the actual MCU. So I guess it's a connection there. But the intro of this episode was inspired by the Happy Endings intro, where it was all like the Wanda flipping through different like texts, like being on a back of a car, like license plate, or on a street sign and stuff, so and whatnot. That was a reference to Happy Endings. The song was a reference to Happy Ending, like the Office song, and the ending of where Wanda and Vision collide, with Vision being a red color. It was actually a reference to the Modern Family intro. So yeah, and there was an Easter egg in the intro that people caught. I'm not 100% sure if it actually is the case or not. Like it would match up, but on the license plate for in the WandaVision intro, it has the numbers 12, 28, 20, 22, and that actually is the same as when Stanley was born. So it's a possibility that was a reference to his birthday. So I'm not 100% sure if that is the case, but it could be. So we go into the actual episode, and we're dealing with the aftermath of Wanda. Was called was called expanding the hex, which she actually talks about, just so like nonchalant, uh, just just a typical thing that she did. But then her sons come in and interrupt her sleep and her grief, and or like depression or whatever, and they're complaining about that the whole house is glitching, or their game's glitching, in which we find out later on it, or their whole house is glitching through the different decades of what we saw with from the 50s to nowadays, and even see the stork and whatnot. But you see here, you have uh, them playing the Wii. Then you see the GameCube controllers. You see an Atari, and then they ended up holding the Uno cards. So just a random like scene there. Uh, but we actually see that Wanda didn't feel like getting out of her costume from her Halloween costume from the last episode. She's still in it, in the bed and whatnot, or at least some of it is, not all of it. But yeah, she gets out of bed. She goes to make some cereal, and on the cover it actually has sugar. The name is Sugar Snaps, which could be a reference to Thanos and the snap that it did that caused Wanda to get dusted, and been it's been an aftermath of Vision's death and all that kind of stuff with Thanos and whatnot. So it's most likely a reference to that. But they have on this box a clown, but it could be tied to the sword stuff, where after Wanda actually expanded the hex, all the sword agents actually became circus people and clowns and stuff like that. So it's possible it's a reference to that as well. Uh, but we go and see where Vision is, and he's actually at the circus with after trying to escape the hex, and he just wakes up, is trying to figure out what's going on. He comes across Darcy, and she's actually the escape artist, and that's because when she was out of the hex, she was actually handcuffed to a van. So they wanted to try to figure out what would best work for that scenario, and it turns out to be escape artist. So yeah, and you go back to the house, and we don't see him in this episode until the very end, like post credit scene, which was nothing really. It's the first post credit scene in this series, but want what's called the boys are questioning about why Pietro said the things that he said about their dad being dead or whatever, and then Wanda actually says he's not your uncle. Like outright says he's not your uncle. So I wonder exactly what's going on there. Like what? Like we know that has some sort of connection to it. I don't exactly know why he looks like the Pietro from or the Peter Pietro from the X-Men universe, and why Agatha has a connection to that and whatnot. So I wonder exactly what the explanation is going to be. So yeah, but Wanda's just kind of losing it, and she says some things that she just it's like she doesn't care, and whatnot. And you have this like scene where she's talking to this camera and saying that they're gonna be fine. Their father's made of vibranium, and they inherited tough skin, which that doesn't work the exactly way that it would work like the way because like they're I don't know if they're actually blood related. It's out of magic, so and he's also a robot, so I don't know how they would be actually his DNA. So yeah, it's just a funny joke, but it's definitely not how that would work. So yeah, uh, you have a scene with Monica and Jimmy, and we don't know if they never actually explain say it or whatever, but they made a big deal in a couple last couple episodes where Monica's talking about her engineer friend that can create this machine that can go into the hex without it changing or whatever, and we go and to meet these government agent people. I think they're all a part of Sword as well, and one of them is named Major Gardner, and apparently she's loyal to Monica and her mother Maria. So there's a connection there, but I don't know if that's actually the engineer that she was talking about because they never actually say it. But yeah, but we go back to the circus part where uh, Vision snaps Darcy out of this trance because, just like how he did with Norm, Agatha in the previous episode. But here she's not freaking out because she's not been there too long, and Vision actually remembers that there was an email that was sent to his company, but from by Darcy, so he knows he can trust her and all that kind of stuff, and then the strongman character was trying to get Darcy and Vision to go back and perform their task that they needed to do because they're at the circus, but Darcy ends up punching him, and apparently that's the exact same actor like that played the sword agent that actually handcuffed her to the van last episode. So that's just payback. Like that is like because he was being rude and just handcuffed her. So yeah, so he deserved that punch, and I don't think this actually is anything at all, but it just seems kind of really weird in my mind because I'm an Agent of Shield fan. I've mentioned it a couple of times already in the series, and like it's just a very minor thing. But when Darcy and Vision enter this food truck, I think it was, on the dashboard was a hula girl, like bobblehead thing, and that was actually has a connection to Agents of Shield because the character of Daisy Johnson actually carried around a bobblehead, but then later on her father did as well. But the biggest thing is that in the framework storyline that I actually mentioned earlier in a couple episodes ago, where it was all about a simulated like messing with people's minds and all that kind of stuff that's similar to what's going on in Agents Wandavision. Uh, there, that also showed up there, and it was a big point of a big scene where someone's trying to convince someone else that this is not a real world, it's a fake world and all that kind of stuff. So it could possibly be a reference, but I don't know if it actually is the case. It just seems kind of weird. There's so many connections to Agents of Shield with actors and whatnot. So yeah, I just don't know if that actually is the case, or they're just trying to mess with our minds and making us go jumping to conclusions that they're actually not. So yeah, but we go to this commercial, and it's apparently called the Nexus. It's about like a pill, like some medicine or whatever for uh for depression and all that kind of stuff, which is referencing the fact that this episode was all about depression with Wanda losing control of her mental state and all that kind of stuff, and the fact that they were saying that they can you can create your own world. Just so it's basically referencing the fact that after her grief of losing vision, she actually started. She kind of started losing it a bit, and actually ended up creating her own reality where we have WandaVision right now. So it's a reference to that, where after the deal with the devil that was of last episode, she ended up creating this world, like fake world reality, and we still haven't actually seen that uh, actual scene come about. So I'm assuming the next couple episodes, because we only have two episodes left, we might see a flashback of that scene actually come to fruition, because it just seems kind of weird that we haven't actually seen that part yet, and I wonder why. But yeah, we're basically catching up to present day in the commercial areas. I don't know if next episode is going to actually have a commercial, or if the finale will, but it seems like we've caught up to present day in the commercials. So yeah, but we have apparently also in this commercial, the name Nexus is actually a comic book reference to something about Nexus beings. I'm not 100% sure what it exactly is, but apparently uh, Wanda is actually a Nexus being in the comics, where she's able to mess with reality with and even if it was meant to happen in the timeline, she can still mess with it, and it has no consequences at all. I don't know exactly if that's right, but that's what I've seen and heard from other people about it. So yeah, I I'm just gonna wait until it explains it better on the show for me to actually understand it. So yeah, unless you know how to explain it down in the comments down below, just comment down below if you know that. So yeah, and you have Agnes show up and trying to get the kids away from Wanda, so she can relax or whatever. But she actually says to the camera, "How do you explain to your to these boys that their mother's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?" And it's a reference to the Cocoa Puffs cereal. So yeah, but you have the scene where Monica's actually finally trying to enter the hex, and it fails because it pushes the truck out of the hex. But then you see a version of Monica's costume from the comics, her photon costume. I'm not sure if that's actually going to be what she's going to look like as her comic book costume or whatever, but the color scheme of it being white and blackish blue or whatever is a comic book reference to her comic book costume. So yeah, and then Monica's pushing through the hex, and uh, you see different versions of life in the past, like WandaVision series, where you saw from the 50s, the 60s, I think. Uh, her or sword bluish thing where she was about to enter the hex for the first time, and then what other one was it? A what was the other one? It was 50s, 60s. The and the post blimp thing where she came she came back from the blimp and that in the hospital. She was also wearing that in that scene, and during the scene you actually had voiceover from the Captain Marvel movies, similar to how they did that in when she was coming back from the blimp. And it was the voiceover from Nick Fury, Maria, her mom, and Carol, talking and whatnot. I'm not sure exactly what the dialogue was, but it was a conversation with those three actors. So yeah, and basically Darcy's here to catch up Vision in this episode. So she's just catching up Vision about his death in Infinity War. How Wanda had or Vision told Wanda to kill him. Uh, so Thanos didn't get the Infinity Stone. And how Thanos rewound time, killed him a second time. They talked about how Vision was born from Ultron's like body or whatever, and like Tony's AI Jarvis and stuff like that. So yeah, and apparently, I had no idea. I thought this was taking place in a very short amount of a time. Like it is a short amount of time, technically still. But Monica or Darcy says for the past week she's been watching WandaVision, and I only thought it was taking place in like a day or so. Like I really thought, because I'm positive it was nighttime, and every time that they would go back to what's called the sword stuff, it was always nighttime. I don't think there was ever daytime. So I was kind of wondering why how it was already a week when it was. I thought it was only like a day or two. So yeah. So you have Monica confronting uh, Wanda, trying to convince her that Hayward's the bad guy, that he's gonna just like stop like destroy this hex just to get Vision back and stuff like that. Doesn't care about any of the people in Westview, and then and talks about how Monica or Wanda talks about how she always lies. She mentions how I only uh, say things that that Wanda put in my head, as talking about the fact that she was under Wanda's control in the first couple of episodes. So yeah, but then you have the superhero landing, that because she's now officially a superhero because she has photon powers, spectrum powers, whatever you want to call her. But I'm assuming it's gonna be photon. And I I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but uh, everyone is mentioning it, so I'm just gonna mention it here. But when uh, Monica upset Wanda too much, she started to go back, like lunge at her basically, and then started pointed at her, and everyone was reminded of I think it was the Real Housewife and cat meme that was going around for a long time on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So I'm assuming it looked very identical to that meme. I'm assuming that was intentional, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, but we get to Agnes's house because Agatha actually got in between Monica and Wanda, and got Monica out of the situation because she doesn't want uh, her to like actually break out of this Westview scenario that they created. I don't know exactly what's gonna go happen, but yeah, she ends up bringing her one. Agatha ends up bringing Wanda to her house, And Wanda's starting to realize something's not right. Like there's food on the table, drinks still there, but no sign of her kids. And she looks at the TV, and it's playing a kids show called Yo Gabba Gabba. I should have looked up when it was released, but I didn't because I just wanted to get this because I was almost I was just trying to get it done and over with because it was almost the episode was almost done, so I just wrote down and forgot to actually look it up. So yeah, she ends up asking Agnes where Agatha asked. She asked Agatha where the boys were. She says they might be downstairs, which would be really weird. Why would they be downstairs when there was only a few seconds in between going from her house to what's called to stop Wanda? So it's not that much of a time. And why would she have not known where the boys were? So yeah, Wanda comes across this this dungeon under Agatha's house, and you see this spell book, which a lot of people, including myself, kinda like it could be, but I hope it's not. It's a connection to Agents of Shield. I mentioned it a couple of times already that I'm kind of hoping if this is I'm hoping it's something else and not what I wanted it to be earlier, because the look of it looks totally different, and this is if this is a way of saying no, screw Agents of Shield and all that kind of stuff, I would not be kind of happy. But my first thought, maybe this book was the Darkhold, which was a big part of Agents of Shield's fourth season and the whole framework storyline, which I've mentioned before, of how can it's similar to what's happening in Westview and whatnot. So I hope, like, I would want it to be, but I would have hoped if it was, it would look like the one from Agents of Shield. But I'm hoping it's something out another book entirely, and it's not the actual Darkhold, so it stays in continuity with Agents of Shield. So yeah, and there's a book in the comics that is tied to the Darkhold called the Necrocomicon, I believe. I I'm not sure exactly how it's related, but it's apparently part of the Darkhold, but it's not the actual Darkhold itself. So it's possible that's what it is, and I'm more hoping that it is that and not the Darkhold because, like I said, it's because it doesn't look like the Darkhold from the Agents of Shield show. I would not want it to be the Darkhold anymore. So yeah, and then you have this big scene which everyone knew this was going to happen before even the show actually premiered, and it turned out, like I've mentioned a couple times in this episode, that Agnes was actually the character of Agatha Harkness, and she has they have this montage song called Agatha All Along, and it's actually inspired by the song The Munsters, which the show The Munsters, which actually premiered on September 24th, 1964. So, like I said in my first episode of this or video of this series, the Dick Van Dyke actually was more of a 60s show than it was a 50s show. And here you have Agatha showing exactly how she was manipulating inside the hex since the beginning of the show, from which was apparently the Dick Van Dyke episode, which took place actually would have taken place in the 60s and stuff like that. So, but it was actually apparently based on the 50s. It's just so it's kind of weird that they still connected it there in a sense. Yeah. It just seemed kind of weird. Like they skipped, even though it was the 50s episodes, they skipped the 50s shows. Like I'm pretty sure I Love Lucy was a 50s show, so they could have done that inspired by that show or whatever. But they decided to take Dick Van Dyke, which was a 60s show and stuff like that. And you have here Agnes being taking the Munsters inspiration, which was a 60s show as well. So yeah, and you see like from the decades of what she was doing behind the scenes of introducing herself to Wanda, uh, uh, messing with Herb and Vision, and in the past couple episodes, manipulating what's called manipulating Pietro somehow. We don't exactly know exactly what's going on, but we she it says Agatha's behind this all along. Even and also killing Sparky, and it says Agatha's been behind this all along. But during that song, we never see exactly any point before the actually the hex happened. So there might be a bigger twist coming on that yes, she was manipulating the inside the hex, but she wasn't actually the one that was pushing her to make the hex in the first, like making Wanda go make the hex in the first place. So I wonder exactly what's going on in there because we still haven't seen uh how like between Wanda getting Vision to Wanda and Westview, like what exactly happened in between that time frame, uh, and how does Agatha actually like orchestrate in around that scenario timeline. So like because we all we've seen so far is that Agatha was manipulating everything around inside Westview, but not before Westview actually happened or the Westview hex happened. So I wonder exactly what happened before Westview's hex happened. So yeah, and so that was basically a prediction. Like I'm assuming in the next episode it's going to be a flashback episode, exactly explaining how because we're leading up to the next like the last episode, and I'm assuming next episode is going to be a flashback episode, exactly leading up from Wanda taking Vision from Sword to ending up in Westview and creating the hex and all that kind of stuff. And we're gonna see how uh, Agatha came about and how she started to manipulate Wanda and why and whatnot. But I'm assuming there might be more to her story than it actually is just Agatha all along. I'm assuming there is going to be someone behind her manipulating her that she might be working with, or he's actually someone is actually working or manipulating Agatha, and Agatha's manipulating Wanda. So yeah, and I'm assuming the finale is gonna be this giant big battle between Wanda and Vision, and what's called Monica versus Agatha. But Agatha in the comics actually has this thing called familiar, which all witches have, and it's this like animal spirit thing. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but in the comics, Agatha actually has a familiar that was actually a cat that could actually transform into a panther, apparently. So I'm assuming they switched it up to it being this bunny, senior Scratchy, and I'm assuming it's going to be at some point in the finale, Senior Scratchy is going to transform into someone. I don't know exactly who or what, and it's going to be also on Agatha's side, trying to stop Wanda and Vision from stopping Agnes and whoever's doing what they're doing, and also Pietro's probably going to be on their side as well, like the bad side, because he seems like he's the bad guy in the past couple episodes, even in the post credit scene where it looked like he took control of uh, Monica at the end of the post credit scene. So yeah, I'm assuming it'll be coming down to those three sets of beings clashing together in a big final showdown in the final episode. So yeah, comment down below if I missed any Easter eggs or references, and if you have any predictions for the upcoming episodes. See ya.